On August 6, 1945, the United States dropped an atomic bomb called Little Boy on the city of Hiroshima in Japan, resulting in the death of 140,000 people. 3 days later, the second bomb, named Fat Man, was also released by the United States, causing casualties of 74,000 in Nagasaki. These events took place towards the end of World War II. In the present day, concerns about a potential nuclear conflict between the United States and North Korea have led many people to search for safe havens in case such a scenario unfolds. Everyone knows that in a devastating nuclear war, the consequences would be extremely grim. Therefore, if deep in your heart, you wish to avoid facing any mushroom cloud, the countries that we will cover shortly are the safest places for you to take refuge. Another interesting thing is that each region we will pass through today offers rich natural landscapes and magnificent architecture, making it hard to ignore for travel enthusiasts. However, before we begin today's journey, the editorial team of Talk with Anna channel has a note for the viewers. This video is purely for entertainment purposes. The Talk with Anna team and anyone who is still conscious on Earth at present do not wish for a world-devastating nuclear war to occur. Now, let's move on to the main content. Naturally, the places that can be considered as a post-self-destruction haven must have the capability to provide the basic elements of life to humans, including oxygen, clean water, and food that does not belong to the territory of any nuclear powers. Whether it is the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council or countries like India, Pakistan, North Korea, and Israel. At this point, you may think that destruction only comes to small countries like Israel and North Korea. However, countries like the United States, Russia, and China, which are powerful nations with vast territories, are also likely to engage in nuclear warfare but would be difficult to completely destroy. Their military forces have enough strength to counterattack and eliminate the aggressor before they can cause irreparable damage. Not to mention that these countries also have vast territories that allow their citizens to evacuate to safe areas in times of conflict. In fact, in some countries like the United States, Russia, China, Switzerland, and Finland, people even prepare bunkers equipped with sufficient food, clean water, and air filtration systems in anticipation of large-scale nuclear warfare scenarios. In China, during the 1960s, the increasing tensions between China and the Soviet Union posed a nuclear war threat in Asia. If full-scale nuclear attacks were directed solely at the main territory, the consequences would involve large-scale explosions with destructive power reaching millions of kilotons, capable of causing devastating damage within tens of kilometers. However, ironically, things are not as simple as that. Let's join the Talk with Anna channel's team to explore the consequences of a nuclear attack. It is not as straightforward as you might imagine. According to the latest research up to the present time, the activation of a nuclear warhead from a specific region would generate a fireball that resembles a red glowing mushroom cloud when viewed from a distance. The shockwave from the explosion would propagate, reducing buildings to rubble. Those at the epicenter of the blast would be instantly reduced to dust. Typically, most intercontinental ballistic missiles designed for land-based launches nowadays carry up to 3 nuclear warheads when deployed for an attack. However, certain missiles, such as Russia's R-36, can carry over 10 warheads, each capable of producing an explosion with a yield of thousands of kilotons anywhere they impact. The devastation from such a nuclear attack can extend the range of third-degree burn victims by an additional 8 kilometers, expand the range of second-degree burn victims by an additional 10 kilometers, and increase the range of first-degree burn victims by an additional 6 kilometers. Those at a distance of approximately 85 kilometers can be considered fortunate as they may only experience temporary blindness. In most nuclear warfare scenarios, ballistic missiles typically target industrial centers and scattered military bases throughout the enemy's territory. Additionally, military bases such as Hawaii and Guam in the United States are also at risk of being targeted by intermediate-range ballistic missiles. If you are a descendant or have connections to high-level political officials of major powers or are a billionaire, you may choose to seek shelter in bunkers equipped with sufficient food, clean water, and air filtration systems. For ordinary citizens, no matter how well prepared they are, it would be difficult to anticipate which localities would be the first to experience nuclear detonations in order to ensure being positioned several hundred kilometers away from the blast center. However, the true nuclear catastrophe occurs after the cessation of the attacks, particularly in the targeted nation. At this point, the healthcare system becomes overwhelmed, and transportation spirals out of control. Even if fortunate enough to have evacuated to a safe location beforehand, the lingering radioactive fallout contaminates the soil, water sources, and the atmosphere with millions of tons of toxic dust particles. Crops, flowers, and livestock suffer severe destruction. It is at this stage that clean land, water, and food become the only essential commodities, while real estate, stocks, gold, and diamonds lose their significance. Areas that are both far enough from the blast range and have sufficient reserves of food and uncontaminated drinking water will quickly be overwhelmed by millions to tens of millions of refugees, creating uncontrollable chaos. The initially safe regions will soon face shortages and struggle to sustain the population for an extended period. Therefore, an area considered safe in the event of a nuclear war must adhere to the following principles. It should not be located near military targets, should be at a sufficient distance from the main territories of nuclear powers, and should not have an overly dense population that would hinder self-sufficiency in food supplies within a short period. These safe regions must also have fertile land and the potential to find new food sources, ensuring a peaceful existence for their inhabitants in the remaining years. In China, there is a relatively large and safe area with an area of up to 1,228,000 square kilometers. However, it has an elevation of 4,500 meters above sea level, which makes it difficult for many people from the lowlands to breathe without carrying oxygen cylinders. Tell us, what is the name of the land 500 m above sea level of China just mentioned in the 4 answers below? A. Tibet Autonomous Region. B. Sichuan Province. C. Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region. D. Qinghai Province. You have 5 seconds to answer. Please leave your answer below in the comments section. The answer will be announced by us when the video has reached the last minute. Returning to the main content, based on the criteria mentioned, it can be seen that it is difficult to find a sufficiently safe area on the territories of nuclear-attacked countries and their neighbors, except for areas such as Guyane, Guadeloupe, Martinique, La Réunion under France, Bermuda, British Virgin Islands, Anguilla under the United Kingdom, which have no strategic military significance and are far from Chinese territory, thus having little possibility of being targeted in a nuclear attack. Although they are overseas territories of the UK, France, and the US, these regions also have relatively prosperous economies with average GDP per capita ranging from $25,000 to $117,000, with Bermuda being at the higher end. It is known that these islands also have freshwater sources and food reserves. The local population is unlikely to rely on electricity or explosives for fishing, so there is no need to worry excessively about the availability of food in the long run. Furthermore, these archipelagos are located far from the surrounding mainland areas, which helps them avoid the risk of being overwhelmed by a large influx of refugees from neighboring countries. Indeed, the overseas territories of France and the UK can provide a safe haven from war without being excessively remote or inhospitable to urban dwellers lacking survival skills. However, this does not mean that there are no safe areas within the continental Europe, as there are several peaceful and happy nations in the world. One notable example is Austria and Switzerland, which are located far from potential conflict zones. These countries are renowned for their permanent neutrality, achieved through special declarations to all nations worldwide and the fulfillment of related commitments. Switzerland, in particular, is further protected by its surrounding mountain ranges, and the government and citizens have made extensive preparations, including the construction of bunkers and stockpiling essential supplies. That can be considered an ideal place for temporary refuge in the event of a nuclear attack on NATO countries in Europe, at least before their reserve supplies start becoming scarce and waves of successful refugee infiltration into the small territories of these two nations begin. However, if one wishes to seek a safer location completely separate from the NATO countries in Europe, which might be the primary targets of nuclear weapons, the Talk with Anna channel team would like to introduce you to the Republic of Iceland. Although considered a member of NATO, Iceland is practically absent from the alliance's military activities. In fact, they do not even have a standing army. If you happen to encounter a few young individuals wearing camouflage uniforms and carrying assault rifles near the capital city of Reykjavik, please remain calm, as they are likely members of the Icelandic Coast Guard or the Republic of Iceland Defense Force. The military forces of this country also possess a small arsenal of anti-aircraft weapons, patrol ships, and helicopters, enough to ensure their ability to counter threats from piracy and terrorism. This island nation is also located far away from the United States and any other NATO military powers, as well as being distant from the Arctic territories of Russia. True to its name, Iceland is a cold country due to its proximity to the Arctic. The average annual temperature in this country typically ranges from -2 degrees Celsius to 14 degrees Celsius, rarely dropping below -8 degrees Celsius or exceeding 17 degrees Celsius. However, you need not worry too much about the cold, as this country is located on the Atlantic volcanic belt and is home to numerous volcanoes, hot springs, and vast geothermal energy resources. After days of tension in a world full of geopolitical fluctuations, you can immerse yourself in the beautiful hot mineral waters while enjoying captivating and exciting videos on YouTube from the Talk with Anna channel team. But if the moments of experiencing the majestic nature, affordable geothermal hot water, and free education system are still not enough to convince you to stay in the icy land of Iceland, then the countries of the Oceania may be the ideal refuge for you in the event of a Third World War. You may not know, but the Oceania is the smallest continent among the 6 continents, including Antarctica. There are a total of 14 independent countries located here, including Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, the Solomon Islands, and many other island nations. These are all island nations, except for Australia, which owns the entire real estate portion of this continent. In any small country in the Oceania, such as the Solomon Islands or Papua New Guinea, you can also find tranquility and pristine beauty due to the minimal impact of human exploitation on the nature here. If you're not someone who follows the philosophy of not working but still wants to have food and survival skills in the wilderness, you can also live a lifetime here with indigenous tribes, engaging in hunting, gathering, and fishing, away from the heat of ongoing conflicts on the other 4 continents. However, if you are already accustomed to modern living and not particularly fond of the primitive lifestyle of unfamiliar indigenous tribes, you can also go to Australia or New Zealand. Both countries have prosperous economies with advanced scientific and technological levels and developed education systems. They also possess significant reserves of essential fossil resources such as coal, oil, and minerals. The economic development plans for resource exploitation in Australia and New Zealand are evaluated as highly efficient and sustainable, rather than excessive or wasteful like many developing countries. By implementing such measures, not only do these 2 countries avoid displeasing environmental advocates, but they also ensure the preservation of reserve resources that can be utilized to sustain civilization after the hypothetical World War III. Even in the most unlikely scenario, where the United States, the ally, faces a devastating attack leading to a counteroffensive that collapses most superpowers, plunging the world into an ungoverned and uncontrollable state, the inhabitants of the Pacific region can still be protected. Due to their remote locations and considerable distance from most superpowers, the territories of the Pacific are safeguarded by the armed forces of the Royal Australian Navy, which possesses overall strength comparable to a major middle-ranking power. According to what is known up to the present time, this most powerful country in Oceania is holding an army of more than 60,000 professional and skilled soldiers under 3 branches of Navy, Air Force and Army. Notably, the Royal Australian Navy holds a significant naval force, including 6 attack submarines as its main combat assets. While not the most advanced submarines in the world, they possess formidable combat capabilities primarily due to their 6 torpedo tubes, allowing them to carry up to 22 Mark 48 Mod 7 Bass torpedoes. Equipped with an active homing guidance system, these submarines can accurately target and engage enemies from a range of 8 kilometers. In urgent defense situations against potential intrusions, each submarine is also equipped with UGM-84C Harpoon anti-ship missiles. It is known that, following the signing of the trilateral security partnership called AUKUS, the Royal Australian Navy will acquire advanced nuclear-powered submarines in the near future, utilizing technology from both the United States and the United Kingdom. Additionally, the Royal Australian Navy maintains operations for 11 frigates, 4 mine countermeasure vessels, and numerous patrol boats and support aircraft, enhancing its defense capabilities against potential maritime threats, which are typically challenging to occur. Thank you for trusting our team and accompanying us on this journey. As for the answer to today's question, the name of the region with an elevation of 4,500 meters above sea level in China is Ansar A, the Tibet Autonomous Region.